Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Shri Krishna Janmastami ki jai. Thank you all very much for joining us in celebrating Krishna's Appearance Day. And the most recommended way to observe such occasions is to hear about Krishna from authorized persons. So we have three very authorized persons with us today. To properly introduce them would take hours, which we don't have. But briefly, today we have with us His Holiness Satsvarupa dasa Goswami, who is the author of more than 150 books based on the Vaishnava scriptures, including Srila Prabhupada Lilamrita, as well as hundreds of paintings, drawings, and sculptures expressing his absorption in the culture of Krishna consciousness. We also have with us His Holiness Jayadvaita Swami Maharaj, author of Vanity Karma, which won a Benjamin Franklin Gold Award from the Independent Book Publishers Association. He served as an editor or assistant editor for nearly every book Srila Prabhupada published during his lifetime. Also with us this morning is His Grace Ravindra Svarupa Prabhu, writer, Vaishnava scholar, and theologian. He served on ISKCON's GBC for almost 30 years. His most recent publication, Srila Prabhupada, the founder Acharya of ISKCON, is a GBC foundational document and the culmination of many years of research into our Gaudiya Vaishnava tradition. We don't even know how lucky we are to have all three of them with us today. On the count of three, I will unmute everyone so you can audibly express your enthusiasm to hear from these great personalities. 1, 2, 3. Haribol!
Haribol.
Thank you for expressing your enthusiasm. So we need to conclude our program by 12:30 today. So depending on the time, we may have an opportunity to ask questions or comment, either by raising your hand in the participants window or letting us know in the chat window that you have a question, or if you so choose, you can type your questions and comments in the chat window. And let's see, okay, we have 50 participants, which is good. And so without further delay, I would like to invite His Holiness Satsvarupa dasa Goswami to speak. And thank you very, very much for being with us today. If you're ready, please go right ahead.
Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pasaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharane Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschata Deshatarani. I'm going to speak on Krishna's Advent. Once the world was overburdened by the defense force, unnecessary defense force of different kings who were actually demons in the dress of the royal order. They were causing much turmoil on the earth.
Therefore, it is everyone's duty.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
The presiding deity of the earth, named Bhumi, went to see Lord Brahma on his planet to tell him of the calamities on earth. Bhumi took the shape of a cow and with tears in her eyes, she was weeping because of her predicament, and she wanted to invoke the compassion of the Lord. When Lord Brahma heard her situation, he started at once to Swaitadweep, where Lord Brahma lives. And he took with him all the demigods and Bhumi also. When Lord Brahma heard her predicament, he became aggrieved, and he started at once for Lord Vishnu's place, which is Swaitadweep. Lord Brahma lives in Brahmaloka. He took with him all the demigods, and Bhumi also followed. When Lord Brahma heard her situation, he started at once for Swaitadweep, where Lord Vishnu lies in the ocean of milk. All the demigods went with him, and Bhumi also followed. When the demigods go to see Lord Vishnu for help, they recite a standard prayer, the Purusha Shukta prayer. This is a standard Vedic process. The message is sent to Brahma, and he transmits it to the demigods. In the beginning of the Srimad Bhagavatam, it is stated, Tene Brahma Rida. Through the medium of the heart, Vishnu's message is transmitted to Lord Brahma. So in the same way, on this occasion, they recited the Purusha Shukta prayers. But when they finished, there was apparently no response from Lord Vishnu. Then Lord Brahma sat in meditation, and he received a transmission message and was asked to tell it to the demigods. The message was, the Supreme Personality of Godhead is very soon going to descend on the earth. And as he carries out his mission of killing the demons and establishing the devotees, I want the demigods to stay there and assist him. So this was the message. Lord Brahma spoke some sweet words and more information to the demigods and Bhumi, and they were appeased. Then Lord Brahma went back to his own planet, Brahmaloka. That's the opening scene of the Krishna book, or the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. The second scene has all different characters and takes place in a different location. Vasudeva the son of Surasena, was riding in his chariot with his newly wedded wife, Devaki, taking her home. Devaki's father was named Devaka, and he was very affectionate toward his daughter. So he gave her a huge dowry of chariots and elephants and horses and beautiful girls. And they were going along in procession. Devaki's brother, Kamsa, voluntarily took the reins. It's the Vedic system that when a girl is newly married, her brother takes her to her new home, to her new father-in-law, because she may be feeling separation from her father's family. So the procession was going along very pleasingly with musical bands playing, when suddenly there was a sound vibration from the sky directed to Kamsa. Kamsa, you fool, you do not know it. You are driving the chariot of your brother-in-law and sister, but you do not know that the 8th child of this woman will kill you. Kamsa immediately grabbed Devaki's hair and was just about to kill her with his sword. Her husband was astonished by Kamsa's behavior, and he tried to intervene. He said, Kamsa, you're such a great warrior. Why are you so infuriated that you're willing to kill your sister on the day of her wedding? You should not be afraid of death. He then began a long monologue of the Vedic science about death. He told Kamsa that when you were born, your death was born with you. And he spoke at length about the transmigration of the soul and how at the time of death, we get another body according to our actions and activities in this life. He spoke very eloquently, but he failed to change Kamsa's mind. Then he thought of a different tact. Let me somehow save my sister. And if there are any children born of her, we will see what to do then. So he spoke cheerfully to Kamsa. Kamsa, you have nothing to fear from Devaki. The prophetic voice said that one of her children would bring you danger. But there are no children here, and there may not be any. And if there are any, I will bring them to you for your action. Vasudeva was celebrated as a man of great honor and truthfulness. So Kamsa was convinced of his argument, and he stopped the heinous act of trying to kill his sister. So Vasudeva and Devaki bore 8 children, 8 men and 1 girl. When the first child was born, the father brought him to Kamsa, kept his word. Kamsa was very pleased and surprised, and he became a little compassionate and said, I don't have any fear from this child. It's the 8th child that I'm afraid of. You may take him back. So Vasudeva took the child back, but he didn't trust Kamsa's word. He had uncontrolled senses. At this time, the great sage Narada Muni visited Kamsa. Narada was anxious to accelerate the appearance of Krishna as soon as possible. So he informed Kamsa that Nanda Maharaj and the cowherds people of Vrindavan, and on the other side, Vasudeva and his father Surasena, and the Yadu dynasty were preparing for the birth of Krishna. Narada told Kamsa to be very careful of the friends of the demigods. Kamsa became very alert, and he put Devaki and Vasudeva behind iron bars. Then they began to give birth to children, one after another, male children. And Kamsa killed them one after another. He was especially afraid of the 8th child. But now, after hearing from Narada, he thought any child could be Krishna. So he thought it was better to kill them all. Lord Vishnu was very compassionate upon the situation, and he called for his Yogamaya potency, his chief potency, and he told her, in Devaki's womb now is my expansion, Ananta Shesha. I want you to transfer him to the womb of Rohini, another wife of Vasudeva's, who was living in the shelter of Nanda Maharaj and the others in Vrindavan. Because Kamsa had broken the solidarity of the Yadu dynasty. They were living in different provinces and even living in caves. So he told Yogamaya to transfer Shesha from the womb of Devaki to the womb of Rohini in Vrindavan. And then he said, and then I am going to come and appear in Devaki's womb. So this happened. And when the time came for Krishna's appearance, everything became very peaceful and auspicious. The constellations in the skies were all auspicious, and the waters were flowing peacefully. And the Brahmins were able to perform sacrifices in their homes again. They had been stopped by Kamsa, but now, near the appearance of Krishna, they all felt joy because they could hear transcendental voices in the sky celebrating Krishna's appearance. Then, in the middle of the night, Krishna appeared in the prison house of Vasudeva and Devaki. He appeared in a four-armed form with all the paraphernalia of Lord Vishnu. So Vasudeva recognized him as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and he made long prayers to him in awe and reverence. And Devaki, or rather, not Devaki, yes, Devaki made her prayers too. She expressed her motherly fear that Kamsa might come in at any moment and kill Krishna. Krishna spoke to her and told her that in 2 previous millenniums, he had appeared as her child and Vasudeva's child. And now this was the 3rd and last time he was appearing. This time they would go back to Godhead with him. So Krishna then turned himself into a regular baby and was silent. At that moment, his younger sister, Yogamaya, was born to Yasoda. And under the influence of Yogamaya, all the guards in the prison fell deep asleep. He ordered Vasudeva to take the baby and bring him to Gokula and exchange him for the girl born to Yasoda and leave the male child there. So at that moment, under the influence of Yogamaya, all the guards fell deeply asleep. And the locks and chains in the prison opened. So it was very easy for him to get out. It was stormy outside, but Vasudeva had protection, and he easily went to Gokula and placed the male child next to Devaki and took the girl child in his arms. Then he went back to the prison, put himself back in the chains so that Kamsa would not understand all the changes that had taken place. What follows is a very dramatic and miraculous scene. But I will stop here because I've used up my time, and you all know the Krishna Lila. Thank you very much.
Jai, Satsvarupa das Goswami ki Jai. Thank you very, very much, Maharaj. Later on, I'll give everyone another opportunity to again express their unmuted joy at being able to hear you and everyone else speak today. Thank you very much. Now, I'd like to invite His Holiness Jayadvaita Swami Maharaj, if he is standing by, and also thank him again for being with us today. And Maharaj, if you are ready, please go ahead.
Okay. Namam Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Shaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashtata Deshatarane Vanshakol Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindho Pyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaur Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Thank you, Satsvarupa Maharaj. We have a verse. The Krishna is still in the womb now, and the demigods are offering prayers. Shrinvan Ganan Samsmarayan Strachintayan Namani Rupani Chamangalani Te Kriyasu Yas Trach Charanara Vindayo Avishta Cheta Napavaya Kopate. In the previous verse, the demigods had said that Krishna's come in such a way as to put an end to mental speculation about the nature of the absolute. He comes and he shows, here's my name, here's my form, my qualities, my activities, my everything. And sakshana, you can directly see it. And there's no need for manovacha, vachobhyam, anumeya, Vartmana, the path of speculating and talking and thinking maybe this, maybe that. The personality of Godhead can only be known by devotional service. Now they say that these devotees, they're hearing, they're chanting or reciting the holy name and activities of the Lord. Some smarayams cha, they're remembering all the name, form, qualities, pastimes of Krishna. Chintayan, they're thinking over these things. And namani rupani chamangalani te, and they're remembering the name and qualities and form of the Lord, which are mangalani, all auspicious. And Twach Charanada Vindya, they're Twach Charanada Vindu or Aveshta Cheta. They're absorbed in thinking of the lotus feet of the Lord. Aveshta Cheta, their consciousness is immersed in thinking of Krishna's lotus feet. Kriyashu, even while engaged in various activities, devotees can carry on with the things that they have to do, but they're able to chant Hare Krishna, think about Krishna, remember Krishna, all of these things. What's especially interesting here, the Prabhupada translates the verse this way: even while engaged in various activities. Okay, Shaila, if you would cut your mic. There you go, thank you. Even while engaged in various activities, devotees whose minds are completely absorbed at your lotus feet and who constantly hear, chant, contemplate, and cause others to remember your transcendental names and forms, are always on the transcendental platform. And thus, they can understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead. What I find interesting here is that, as far as I can tell, there's nothing about causing others in the Sanskrit. It's all about what they do. They hear, they remember, their consciousness is absorbed in thinking of Krishna's lotus feet. But Srila Prabhupada takes it forward to, with enthusiasm, they make others remember your names and forms. That's how he takes the third line, that's how he takes it. And then how he takes Kriyashu is also very interesting. Kriyashu, the general meaning given is that even while the devotees are engaged in their ordinary affairs, people always ask, well, I'm engaged in my activities, how can I remember Krishna? No, you can. And it's a matter of practice and gradual advancement. So the general meaning taken is, even while engaged in Kriya and ordinary activities, the devotees chant and hear and remember Krishna's lotus feet. But here's how Prabhupada takes it. The word kriyasu, meaning by manual labor or by work, is important in this verse. One should engage in practical service to the Lord. In our Krishna consciousness movement, all our activities are concentrated upon distributing Krishna literature. This is very important. One may approach any person and induce him to read Krishna literature so that in the future, he also may become a devotee. Such activities are recommended in this verse. Kriyasu yastvach charanada vindayoho. Such activities will always remind the devotees of the Lord's lotus feet. By fully concentrating on distributing books for Krishna, one is fully absorbed in Krishna. This is samadhi. So here Prabhupada takes it in a very interesting way. In the translation, cause others to remember your transcendental names and forms, and in the purport, distribute literature. So how is that connected to Kriyasu? Prabhupada connects it that this is practical devotional service, practical activity in the service of the Lord. And that's what gets you going in thinking about Krishna, remembering his lotus feet, remembering his name and form, and so on. It's not just that it is that you chant, you hear, you read, you remember, but also you perform practical activities for Krishna, and that helps you chant and hear and remember. And especially by reminding others of Krishna, to remind others of Krishna, to distribute books, to to go out and give people Krishna consciousness, what happens? When we do that, then we have to think of Krishna. So it's exceedingly practical at the same time that it's a very deep realization. Especially if you bring this to the person of Srila Prabhupada, whose appearance we're celebrating tomorrow, you see this is what he did. He absorbed himself in bhajan and chanting and hearing, in translating Srimad Bhagavatam, and in practical activities for spreading Krishna consciousness. One of my favorite lines from Prabhupada's books is in Upadeshamrita, where Srila Prabhupada says that the Krishna consciousness or bhakti is not just a matter of speculation or speculative ecstasy or I forgot how Prabhupada put it. It's really fantastic, but it's not sentiment. It's not sort of catapulting yourself into Vaikuntha by some sort of jujitsu. But Prabhupada says it's practical activity in the service of the Lord. That's the essence of devotional service. So Prabhupada brings that all together in a package here, that with Kriyasu. Kriyasu means, yes, well, we're performing our ordinary activities, and Kriyasu also means that we are always doing something for the service of Krishna. One should engage in practical service to the Lord. And then Prabhupada focuses that the Krishna consciousness movement is engaged in distributing Krishna literature. I noticed, by the way, that the scoreboard reads 150 to 1. Satsvarupa Maharaj has written 150 books, and I've written one. So he's a lot of practical activity for Krishna literature. So this is our Krishna consciousness movement. So much emphasis Prabhupada gives on practical activity, and particularly this activity of sharing literature, distributing literature, establishing, what is that? Some Saddharma Samstapako, establishing the principles of Krishna consciousness through transcendental writings, like this Srimad Bhagavatam, Krishna book, and other books that follow in the same line. So these are some thoughts about these verses connected to Krishna's pastimes. And I will end 5 minutes early.
Jai, thank you very much, Maharaj. We would have been happy to hear that last 5 minutes, but there are other opportunities later on if we maintain that 5-minute cushion. And I also took the liberty of posting your website info and that of Satsvarupa Maharaj into the chat window for those who may not be familiar. And I will give everyone a chance later on to express their unmuted joy at being able to hear you speak today.
Unmuted joy.
And now I'd like to invite His Grace.
Just Prabhu Bihari has given us the
Yes.
quotation exactly from Isha Upadeshamrita. If I could just slip it in before
Yes.
Ravindra Svarupa speaks. Devotional service is not a matter of sentimental speculation or imaginative ecstasy. Its substance is practical activity. Okay.
Jai. Hare Krishna. So thank you very much again. And thank you, Vrajbihari Prabhu, for posting that very helpful comment. So now I'd like to invite His Grace Ravindra Svarupa Prabhu to speak to us and thank him for being with us today. So Gurudev, if you're ready, please go ahead. We're ready for you.
Thank you very much. Vanchakalpatrubhyascha kripasindubhyabhacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. I don't have a text in front of me, but I just want to talk about our extraordinary good fortune to be able to celebrate this holiday today. The appearance of Krishna is actually quite rare. He only comes once in a day of Brahma. There's a list in the Bhagavatam, I think, in the third chapter, the first canto. Eke chamsa kala pumsam Krishnas tu Bhagavan Swayam. All of these incarnations and appearances of the Lord are kala and amsha, expansions or expansions of expansions, but Krishna is Bhagavan Swayam. He is the Prabhupada does a Supreme Personality of Godhead himself. So he comes only once in a day of Brahma. That's a long time, very long time. The cycle, the lifetime of Brahma has various components and everything like that. But I lost my train of thought. He comes once in this day of Brahma, and when he comes, otherwise, this is Bhagavan himself. This is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. All the others are amsas and kalas, expansions or expansions of expansions. So it's rare. Brahma's day is 1,000 yuga cycles long, and there are actually only 994 yuga cycles because the rest are these sanjas at the beginning and ends of the manus. There are 14 manus, and each has a sanja. So this is our very good fortune. We happen to be born at that time when Krishna has come, and what you have with Krishna is the private life of God. Generally, God is majestic and commands, rather, it elicits awe and reverence. But Krishna wants to have closer relationships with his devotees, not just awe and reverence, but something, something that's more satisfying to him. When there's awe and reverence, you stand back and you a little frightened and you don't get close. So he has majesty, but he also has sweetness. And as Krishna, he takes a time where his attractiveness, his sweetness overshadows his majesty, and therefore there can be intimate relationships. So with Krishna, what you really get is kind of the private life of God, something that you don't find almost anywhere else. And that private life of God is it's esoteric. And so the other thing that happens when Krishna appears, he's followed by Lord Chaitanya, because Krishna's private life is, for very good reasons, is private, and that people will not understand it. It's confidential. And Prabhupada defines confidential as not everyone will be able to appreciate it. And so that Lord Chaitanya comes afterwards in order to actually give us the ability to understand God's private life. So whenever Krishna appears in that one yuga cycle. Lord Chaitanya comes afterwards, so that it can be understood. And even then it's not understood. I have a book was written in the early 20th century, an encyclopedia of religions. And there's an entry in there for Lord Chaitanya, and it just says he introduced a degenerate element into Vaishnavism. That's because also there were these Sahajiyas and so on, other things like that. So even that was misunderstood. Fortunately, we have a series of devotees who, in the service of Lord Chaitanya, brought forth the true teachings of Lord Chaitanya, because there's a list that Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he was one of the ones who did it. He gave the list to owls, bowls, Garanga Nagaris, Kartabhajas, all these people who had distorted Lord Chaitanya's teaching. And so there was so much effort to give us the actual understanding of Krishna himself when his beauty overpowers his majesty. And you have this intimate understanding of what Krishna is and how in spiritual bodies he exchanges loving relationships with all varieties of devotees, so that his associates, the gopis may know that he's God, but they don't, we're not so interested in that part. We like him because he's Krishna. And so this is properly conveyed by Lord Chaitanya, who himself is Krishna. And that's quite a tribute too, because here is the Lord himself comes, and he would like to be a devotee. He's God himself, but he's thinking, when he especially looks at his devotee Radharani and thinks, she's feeling more bliss than I am. And Krishna is also thinking, what is it about me that she finds so interesting? I'd like to see what I look like from her point of view. So we have this very rich heritage. And as I said, once in a day of Brahma, that this happens, and that this very intimate, esoteric, Prabhupada calls confidential. Confidential means not everyone will be able to appreciate it. This confidential entry into the private life of God, so that his beauty overpowers, his attractiveness overpowers his majesty. So that's why we are very, very fortunate to be here in this time, and to have the labor of other people who want to spread it. Because when Lord Chaitanya appeared, he was not always understood. Had a bad reputation in some circles, degenerate element because of the owls, bowels, Garanganagaris, Kartabhajas. And so many generations of devotees also worked to give us Krishna as he actually is. That it was actually Bhaktivinoda Thakur who talks about, he was interesting when Krishna comes to the West, that Bhaktivinoda Thakur has sort of he was a Bengali, he was educated, he knew English, he was a civil servant in the British Raj. So he could think of himself in a bigger context than just India. And gradually he tells in his biography of how he was looking to find people who really, in his judgment, were the real people who understood Lord Chaitanya. And so he excavated these people, identified Lord Chaitanya's birthplace. There are different competing sites for that, and found these very renounced people who actually were not owls, bowls, Garanga Nagaris, and Kartabhajas and the rest, but actually, in his judgment, pure followers of Lord Chaitanya. And he also wrote some things in English, and then his son took the effort to actually organize a movement that would bring Krishna consciousness to the West. And this was Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. And again, he told any one of his followers who was competent in English to preach and go to the West. And one of them was Srila Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada, who actually did it. So that was the effort to actually bring about the fulfillment of Lord Chaitanya's desire that this names of Krishna would be one day chanted all over the world. And so we have to carry on this mission. If you see how many people have worked and sacrificed and spent so much energy and so much trouble and so much difficulty, we see all the difficulty that Srila Prabhupada went to. That's quite a thing to do at an old age. And now I know what that's like, how hard it is to to get things done, and he did it. Left his country, went on a cargo ship, got passage on a cargo ship, came to New York City, didn't know what he was going to find out. One devotee told me that Prabhupada, who knew Srila Prabhupada at that time, he actually was looking to see when the ships were maybe going back to India in case he was going to be unsuccessful. And then gradually people began to come. And the distance you had to travel to become a devotee of Krishna, because the first academic work on us was Hare Krishna and the counterculture. You had to be a kind of a double dropout to become a Krishna devotee. You had to drop out of mainstream society into the counterculture, and then from the counterculture into Krishna consciousness. That was the distance you had to travel. So you were twice alienated in this way. I remember one of the first times when I was going to the temple, there was a lecture given, a fairly stern lecture to a group of people that was coming to the temple. There was a parachute on the temple rented building tacked onto the ceiling. Everybody who came recognized that, because what you used to do when you took LSD was lay on the floor, have a silk parachute above you, and then you could have interesting hallucinations. Somebody asked the question, is that a parachute? The devotee said, yes. How much did it cost? The guy asked, said, that is not a topic for conversation. It was like that. But we all chanted Hare Krishna. And somebody, the same guy was asked, another person asked, how does chanting Hare Krishna differ from LSD? And the devotee said, it's a different head, but it gets you there. So that's how it was spread. So all of this came about by the plan of the Lord, that Lord Chaitanya, Krishna came and he revealed his Vrindavan pastimes for everybody. He was, the awe and reverence was now bypassed. This is Krishna in Dwarka, but here Krishna is in Vrindavan. And so that's a glimpse of the private life of God. And then to give us an understanding of how we can comprehend it and appreciate it and enter into it, that's Lord Chaitanya. And then after Lord Chaitanya, so many other people have come. So we have to feel ourselves to be very, very fortunate. How can we pay those people back for all what they have done for us? We can also become Krishna conscious ourselves and then give it to others. The word bhakti, the root of the Sanskrit word, means to share, to divide and to share. And so we should also celebrate our good fortune, pay back those people who have given it to us by also advancing ourselves in Krishna consciousness and then help others to do it. And that's how we should celebrate this Sri Krishna Janmastami. Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Jai. Ravindra Svarupa Prabhu ki Jai. All right, on the count of 3, I will again unmute everyone so that you can audibly express your appreciation for our speakers today. 1, 2, 3.
Haribo! Hare Krishna!
Haribo,
Haribo!
Jai.
Hare Krishna!
Gauranga, Hare Krishna.
All right.
Hi, Guru Maharaj.
Say Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna!
All right, so apparently we still have a few minutes for questions, thanks to Jayadvaita Swami's generous donation of time. So if anyone would like, you can now individually unmute yourselves if you have any questions for our speakers today, or you can write your questions into the chat window. We're eager to hear from you. And while those questions are coming in, before they do, I want to mention that tomorrow is the appearance day of Srila Prabhupada. And everyone can know that at 11 a.m. tomorrow on the Bhakti Center Zoom channel, there will be a similar program of remembrances. The speakers will include Ravindra Svarupa Prabhu, Jayadvaita Maharaj, and Brahmatirtha Prabhu. And waiting to see if there are any questions for our speakers today.
Also, Jayadvaita Maharaj knows the URL specifically, but there's the SP tributes. I think it's sptributes.com. So if you want to read tributes to Srila Prabhupada online, you can. We can type it in for you.
It's right there.
Oh,
on
it
the
is?
chat
Okay,
room.
great.
Thank you, Maharaj. So, Hare Krishna. And also the Zoom ID for the Bhakti Center is in the chat window. So please go ahead and note that down while we're still live here. And we have a question from Rati Krishna Prabhu. Rati Krishna Prabhu would like to hear about our speaker's first experience with Janmastami. So if anyone would like to field that among our speakers, we'd all be happy to hear that. That microphone is not so live right now. We're not able to hear Maharaj. Oh, wait, hold on a second. Let's try again. Okay, I've unmuted.
Were you expecting me to say something? I wasn't saying anything.
Oh, no. Satsvarupa Maharaj had a microphone in front of him.
Satsvarupa Maharaj.
And now he's unmuted, so I think we're ready to hear.
I don't have anything really to say about the early days. Janmastami wasn't celebrated in 1966, but maybe it was a couple of years later when we had our love feasts. I don't remember Prabhupada's participation.
I don't remember either.
Okay.
Jayadvaita Maharaj, did you have anything that you wanted to say about your earliest remembrances of Krishna Janmastami when you came?
It was the 1960s. I don't remember anything.
Right. That was Tim Leary. Anyone who can remember the 60s wasn't there.
We have a question from someone who has named themselves Bhakti Rascal, which I'm sure is a pseudonym for something different. This is a question for Satsvarupa Maharaj, and they're asking you, what was it like to be the very first person to hear the Krishna book as Srila Prabhupada's typist?
It was wonderful. You could hear, it's been recorded, his dictations with him clicking the button, which is what I heard, and I typed it up, was recorded before it was sent back to Prabhupada. So the BBT has an almost complete Krishna book for everyone to hear. And it's very intimate and wonderful. Prabhupada effortlessly speaks the verses of the Krishna book. I recommend everyone to listen to those Krishna book tapes.
Okay. I gotta ask a question. How do I get here?
We can hear you, Haryashva Prabhu.
Oh.
Just go ahead and speak right up.
Okay. So first, thank you, Guru Maharaj. And I have a question for Ravindra Svarupa Prabhu. You spoke about the fortune, how fortunate, the jivas were for the way that Krishna comes. So yeah, he comes. There's once in there Brahma. So you were speaking of the fortune. I kept hearing Bhagavan Jiva in my head, and to connect together. I wanted to know if you could take it a little further on the fortune of us for Krishna to come, and aspect of how it is for Prabhupada. Because I was thinking about that as you were speaking, how fortunate we are to actually be here in this society and hear about Krishna, but to have the association of Srila Prabhupada. So anything you have, you can continue.
I can't think that there's anything I did to deserve it, that's for sure. There's a reason why causeless mercy is called causeless. Means you can't find out the reason. So we just have gratitude, I mean, the idea of mercy means you don't deserve it, right?
Yeah.
If somebody is given a reprise from a punishment, is ready to be held up, taken off to the gas chamber or the electric chair, and is suddenly pardoned, well, okay, glad I'm pardoned. Just be grateful.
We also have a question from Yadunath and Ekanta Bhakti. Please go ahead.
Hare Krishna. Thank you all very much. Bachelor number 2, what would you say? No, just kidding. Can any of you recall what was immediately striking for you the first time you read Krishna book? Was there anything particularly that jumped out at you as a wow moment?
No.
I do. I first got into Krishna book when I came to Boston. The ISKCON Press was in Brooklyn, and we came up and really got established in Boston. The painters were already there, the artists. Satsvarupa was there. The recordings were being made of the dictations as they were going on. And this was the first time we were hearing about this, the Krishna's activities. So till then, he's the speaker of Bhagavad Gita. Okay, we had some information from first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, but then we come up to Boston and these tapes are playing, and Krishna's visiting a society girl, and all sorts of things are going on. And it's, oh my God, what have we gotten ourselves into? You know, we were just 2 steps away from a nice, comfortable, impersonal, all-pervading absolute. And then now it comes to this.
I can say something too. I was, it was wonderful when it was coming out, because this, getting a little echo, okay? No, it's not okay. This is the 10th canto. You know, I mean, this is a leap ahead of where we were reading as the Bhagavatam would come out, and suddenly, then Prabhupada called it a summary study, I think, because that's the summary study of the 10th canto, that he was going out of his way to present us with this, you know, the famous 10th canto of the Bhagavatam, and you're advised not to leap directly into, you know, Krishna's Rasa Leela and things like that, but it tells you should proceed step by step, pace by pace, you know, pace wise to you qualified to get to the 10th canto, and then all of a sudden here it was, and so, but we realize that Prabhupada is relating it to us in such a way, and the English is quite simple and easy to understand, not very sophisticated in so many ways. So I was just impressed by how kind Prabhupada was, that maybe he wouldn't get to the 10th canto. And of course, he only did, you know, like the first, I think, 14 or 13 chapters of it. But that he was able to give us this this summary study, as he called it, and it was really quite nice, and for us to have it that way. So I was just very grateful that we had that, and it's interesting that now I've been reading it again, and it holds up. Okay.
We have one comment in the chat box here. Sankarshana Prabhu says, I remember hearing or reading that Prabhupada asked devotees to fast during the 1966 Janmastami and stay in the temple and chant and hear about Krishna all day until midnight. And if they needed to eat, have some fruit. One devotee wanted to go feed her cat, and Prabhupada told her to stay, but she left.
Yes.
Hare Krishna. So I want to take this opportunity because there are some apparently distinguished guests in the audience today. There's someone by the name of Alfred Ford in our participant window. And if that is indeed Ambarish Prabhu, our obeisances and gratitude to him for tuning in today. Also, Lekha Shravanti Mataji is also named here in the list. So thank you very much. And Samika Rishi Prabhu and any other distinguished guests who I may have forgotten or failed to mention.
The Lekha Shravanti said KKS, so I'm assuming it's Krishna Kshetra Prabhu.
Oh, okay.
I mean, Swami.
Anyway, all glories to all the devotees who attended today. There is a question, one more in the chat box from Guru Das, and this is directed to Satsvarupa Maharaj. He says, you write how the first initiation was held on Janmastami, but you did not take part, and Prabhupada personally asked you to participate in the next initiation on Radhastami.
Is that a question?
It sounds like a comment, or maybe an open door for you to comment further if you so choose.
Well, I thought I wasn't ready for the first initiation. So I stayed back and typed. And then when I brought the typing to him, he said, this typing isn't mechanical. If you love me, I'll love you. And that made a big impression on me. And I wanted to be initiated. So I asked him if I could be initiated, and he said there would be another initiation in 2 weeks on Radhastami. So I took that opportunity.
Jai, thank you very much for that. As I'm not seeing any further questions or hands up, I'll take this opportunity to thank everyone again for tuning in today and thank His Holiness Satsvarupa dasa Goswami, His Holiness Jayadvaita Swami. And
I have a question from Portugal.
Oh, we have a question all the way from the Azores. Vijay Krishna Prabhu, please go ahead.
And this question is directed to Satsvarupa Maharaj. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. My question is, how much time it took for you to write Srila Prabhupada Lilamrita?
It took 5 years.
Thank you, Maharaj. Hare Krishna.
All right. So because this is, after all, a birthday party, and there should be more celebratory noise, on the count of 3, one more time, I'll unmute everyone so that you can audibly express your appreciation for our speakers today. 1, 2, 3. Hare Krishna. Jai Jai.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj. Hare Krishna, Jayadvaita Swami. Hare Krishna, Ravindra Svarupa Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Hare Ashva.
Jai Jai Jai.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna, Mother Siddhamani.
Thank you, Mother Siddhamani, for tuning in.
Hare Krishna.
Jai Jai. So I also wanted to thank Shraddha Devi Prabhu Mataji for putting the event together. And I want to thank Srila Prabhupada for spreading Krishna consciousness all over the world, so thus giving the rest of us the chance to hear from your sincere followers like our speakers today. And thank you everyone once again for your participation. Shri Krishna Janmastami ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. His Holiness Satsvarupa Maharaj ki jai. Jayadvaita Maharaj Jai.
Jai.
Ravindra Svarupa Prabhu ki jai.
Jai Gurudev.
Gaur Premanande. Hari.
Oh.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Very good.
Jai. Thank you very much.